Have you ever wondered why older women grow distant from their husbands? It's something people whisper about but rarely say out loud. You'll hear phrases like, "she's just tired," or "they've been married too long." But the truth is deeper and more real than most people realize. As women age, they begin to see their marriages with new eyes. Decades of habits, silence, and imbalance come into focus. And for many, it brings a surprising mix of emotions: grief, anger, disappointment, and yes, even resentment. In this video, we're going to explore 6 powerful reasons why some women begin to resent or even hate their husbands in old age. These aren't about small arguments or personality clashes. They're about emotional weight that's been carried quietly for years. From unspoken exhaustion to emotional neglect, each reason is rooted in lived experience. And if you've ever sensed distance growing between you and your partner, or wondered why your wife seems different now, you're not imagining it. Stay with us until the very end, because the final reason may open your eyes in a way you never expected. This isn't just about relationships. It's about finally being seen, heard, and understood. Let's begin. Reason 1, the weight of emotional labor becomes undeniable. As women get older, something begins to shift. What they used to brush off, they can now see with clarity. And one of the clearest things is how much emotional labor they've carried through the years. For decades, many women have been the ones remembering birthdays, scheduling doctor's appointments, managing the kids, calming arguments, and noticing when something felt off. It wasn't just housework. It was the invisible work of holding everything together. At first, it might have felt natural, maybe even expected, but over time, the weight adds up. And when the children are grown and the pace of life slows down, many women begin to see just how one-sided that emotional investment has been. It's not always that the husband was cruel or careless. It's that he simply never noticed how much she was holding. And when you reach your 60s or 70s, you start asking different questions. Like, why was I always the one worrying? Why? Didn't he ever learn how to handle this part of our life? These thoughts don't come from bitterness. They come from exhaustion. Silent, long-lasting exhaustion. Think about a woman named Carol. She's 74 now. For most of her marriage, she managed everything. She was the one who remembered to refill prescriptions, called the grandkids, planned the holidays, and smoothed over family tensions. Her husband, Tom, always said, "You're just better at that stuff." But Carol now realizes it wasn't a compliment, it was a dismissal. He never tried. And now she resents that deeply. This kind of emotional work often goes unspoken. There's no paycheck for it, no thank you card, but it shapes the tone of a marriage. And when that labor isn't recognized or shared, it slowly wears someone down. By the time retirement comes around, many women don't feel close to their husbands. They feel tired of them. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding. When one person in a relationship does all the emotional tending, it leads to imbalance. And in later years, that imbalance becomes harder to ignore. Not because the woman changed, but because she finally had time to notice how long she'd been holding it all. Next, we'll talk about what happens when conversation fades and emotional connection starts to disappear, not with a bang, but with silence. Reason 2, the slow breakdown of real communication. It doesn't happen all at once. In fact, that's what makes it so hard to see. But over time, real conversation between couples can quietly disappear. What's left are routines, surface-level exchanges, and daily logistics. Things like, "Did you take your pills?" or "What do you want for dinner?" But the deeper parts, the laughter, the dreams, the checking in, those start to fade. For many women, especially in their 70s and beyond, this silence can become deafening. It's not about wanting long, passionate talks every night. It's about being seen. It's about feeling like your inner world still matters to someone. And when that's gone, a quiet loneliness creeps in. Even when someone's sitting right next to you. It's a strange kind of grief. You're not mourning a death. You're mourning the loss of connection with a person who's still alive. And worse, with someone who used to know how to reach you. Or at least tried. But when years pass and those conversations never come back, something hardens. Not all at once, but slowly. Like dust gathering in a corner no one bothers to sweep. Let's talk about Joyce. She's 79. She's been married to Frank for over 50 years. They watch the same shows, eat the same meals, sit in the same chairs. But she can't remember the last time he asked how she was really doing. Not her joints, not her blood pressure, her. She doesn't expect poetry, but she misses curiosity, misses feeling like someone cares about what's going on inside her. Frank, for his part, doesn't think anything's wrong. In his mind, they're getting along just fine. No fighting, no drama. But what he doesn't see is that the silence is slowly replacing the warmth. That Joyce feels more like a roommate than a wife. That she sometimes talks to the television, just to hear her own voice in the room. Women aren't asking for grand gestures. They're asking to be met in the middle, to still be talked to with kindness, curiosity, and care. And when that's gone, a wedge forms. Not because of what's said, but because of what isn't. And over time, that wedge can turn into deep emotional distance. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 2 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Reason 3, unequal caregiving creates silent resentment. In the later stages of life, caregiving becomes a reality for many couples. Illness, memory loss, surgeries, or chronic conditions can shift the rhythm of daily life. And often, it's the woman who steps into the role of caregiver without question, without pause. She does it out of love, out of habit, and sometimes out of sheer necessity. But underneath that quiet service, something else can begin to grow: resentment. At first, she may not even realize it. She just keeps doing what needs to be done. Measuring pills, helping with mobility, driving to appointments. But over time, she starts to feel the weight, not just of the task, but of the imbalance. Because somewhere deep down, she remembers when she needed support. And it wasn't always there. When women care for their aging husbands, they often do it while managing their own health problems. They're tired too. They have aches, doctor visits, and fears of their own. But they put those aside again and again to make sure their spouse is okay. And while some husbands express deep appreciation, others don't say much at all. They expect it, they assume it, and that unspoken assumption cuts deep. Think about Margaret, 82. Her husband Bill had a stroke at 76. Since then, Margaret has been caring for him every day, helping him bathe, managing his medications, cooking every meal. She loves him, but she's worn thin. What breaks her heart isn't the work. It's the memory of her own surgery years ago, when she asked Bill to cook or clean for just a week, and he grumbled the whole time. Now, she can't forget that. The resentment doesn't come from caregiving itself. It comes from the history that came before it. The time she was strong for him, and he wasn't strong for her. The way she adjusted, accommodated, and compromised while he stayed the same. In old age, when roles shift and caregiving is needed, those memories come back. Not as anger, but as quiet, simmering pain. It's not easy to talk about. Many women feel guilty even thinking it. They wonder, does this make me a bad person? The answer is no. It makes you human. It means you've given a lot, maybe more than your share, and it's okay to feel the weight of that. It's okay to name the imbalance, especially when it's been ignored for decades. In the next section, we'll talk about what happens when appreciation disappears. Not just in big moments, but in the daily, ordinary things that matter more than people think. Reason 4. A lifetime without appreciation takes its toll. There's something that starts to sting more as the years go by, and that's feeling unappreciated. It doesn't happen overnight. It builds quietly, day by day, year by year. And for many women, by the time they reach their 60s or 70s, that emptiness becomes hard to ignore. It's not that they needed applause or constant praise. It's that they needed to feel seen. Over a lifetime, women do a lot that goes unnoticed. They plan the meals, keep the family calendar, remember the birthdays, write the thank you notes, wash the sheets, manage the schedules, and do the behind-the-scenes work that holds everything together. And when that work is never acknowledged, it can slowly feel like it never mattered. At first, it might have been enough to hear thanks once in a while, or maybe she let it slide thinking, this is just how things are. But after decades of quietly giving, it starts to feel less like love and more like being taken for granted. Take Lorraine, age 77. She was married to John for over 50 years. She raised 3 children, worked part-time, made every holiday special, and supported John through every job change and family loss. But John rarely said thank you. Not because he was mean, but because he assumed she would always be there. And now in retirement, Lorraine finds herself angry. Not because of one big event, but because of a lifetime of being quietly overlooked. Appreciation doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be a simple, I see how hard you're working, or I don't say this enough, but thank you. When those words never come, love starts to feel like duty, and duty without gratitude wears a person down. In older age, many women begin reflecting on their lives. They ask themselves what they gave and what they got in return. And when the answer feels lopsided, it creates a kind of sadness that's hard to name. Some call it regret, others call it disappointment. But deep down, it's a longing to have mattered. Not just as a wife or mother, but as a person. Unspoken, this feeling can lead to distance, a quiet hardening, a withdrawal of warmth. It's not hate, it's hurt. And it's been growing for years, unnoticed. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 4 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now, let's move forward. Reason 5, the quiet loss of independence and identity. As the years pass, many women begin to look back on their lives with a sharper lens. And one of the things they often see is how much of themselves they gave up along the way. Not because they were forced, but because they believed that's what love and family required. They gave up dreams, jobs, hobbies, friendships, and sometimes even their own voice. And in old age, that loss starts to feel heavier than ever. When you're younger, you're busy. There are kids to raise, bills to pay, dinners to cook, and responsibilities pulling you in every direction. You don't always have time to stop and think, what do I want? But when things slow down, when the kids are gone, and the house is quiet, that question comes back. And for some women, the answer is painful. They realize they've spent decades supporting someone else's path, while quietly abandoning their own. They may have once wanted to write, paint, travel, or go back to school. But those things were always placed second. And the person they used to be gets buried under years of caregiving, compromise, and putting others first. Think about Eleanor. She's 75 now. When she was young, she loved music. She wanted to be a music teacher. But life happened. She married her husband at 22, raised 4 children, and worked part-time to help with the bills. Her husband encouraged her to stay home when the kids were small. Then later said they didn't have the money for lessons. Now Eleanor sits in a quiet living room, wondering what would have happened if she'd said no once in a while. If she had chosen herself at least a few times. This isn't about blaming anyone. Her husband didn't stop her with anger or cruelty. He just never asked what she wanted, and she stopped asking too. But the result is the same. She feels like a stranger in her own life, defined more by the role she played than the person she is. And when you feel like your life was swallowed by someone else's needs, it's hard not to feel bitter. Not because you didn't love them, but because somewhere along the way you lost you. In old age, when women finally have time to breathe, they also start reclaiming pieces of themselves. But sometimes the partner beside them doesn't know how to handle that. They've gotten used to things being one way. And when a woman starts saying no, setting boundaries, or doing things just for herself, it can cause tension. But the truth is, she's not being selfish. She's remembering who she is. And sometimes that memory comes with anger, grief, or even hatred. Not just for what was lost, but for how invisible those losses were to the person closest to her. In the final section, we'll look at what happens when one partner chooses to age passively while the other keeps growing, and how that difference can quietly drive a wedge that words alone can't fix. Reason 6, different approaches to aging and personal growth. Aging changes everyone, but not always in the same way. And one of the hardest things for many older women is watching their husbands stop trying, not just physically, but emotionally. While some women use their later years to explore new interests, learn, reflect, or build deeper relationships, their husbands may begin to withdraw. They settle into the recliner. They stop caring about what they eat, how they feel, or how they show up in the relationship. At first, it might look like rest, a well-earned break after decades of working. But as time passes, it starts to feel like resignation, like giving up. And for women who are still growing, still curious, still emotionally alive, that passivity can feel like abandonment. It's not about going skydiving or taking dance lessons. It's about being present, staying engaged, showing signs that you still care about living with purpose. When a woman looks across the table and sees a man who has emotionally checked out, it doesn't feel like peace. It feels like loneliness. Let's take Susan. She's 73. She recently joined a book club, started painting again, and began walking every morning. Her husband, Richard, spends most of the day in his chair watching television. He complains about his knees, ignores the doctor's advice, and shows no interest in anything outside his routine. Susan doesn't hate him for being older. She resents that he's stopped trying. That he stopped meeting her halfway? That he looks at her efforts as extra instead of essential? For many women, old age becomes a second chance. It's time to reclaim what was put aside. But when their husband doesn't want to grow with them, they feel stuck. And over time, stuck turns into frustration. Frustration turns into distance. And that distance can feel like the quiet death of the relationship. It's not just about health either. It's about mindset. Some men resist change at every turn. They brush off emotional conversations, avoid reflection, dismiss anything that asks them to open up. And while that might have been tolerated years ago, it becomes unbearable in later life. When time feels more precious and shallow, connection feels more painful. In many of these marriages, women don't want to walk away, but they do want something more. They want to be met with effort, with presence, with the same curiosity and energy they're still bringing to the table. And when that doesn't happen, they don't just feel disappointed, they feel alone. In a marriage, with someone who still sleeps beside them, but who no longer meets them in spirit. If you're still watching this video and finding these insights valuable, please comment number 6 below to let me know you're here. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Now let's move forward. Final thoughts. If you've made it this far, take a moment to sit with everything you've just heard. These 6 reasons aren't about bitterness or blame. They're about truth, quiet, lived truth that many women carry inside for years. And while they may not always say it out loud, they feel it deeply. In their bodies, in their hearts, in the pauses between conversations that used to matter. What stood out to you the most? Was it the emotional labor that went unrecognized? The years of silence that replaced meaningful connection? Or the slow realization that somewhere along the way, a part of who you are got buried? This video isn't just about why women begin to hate their husbands in old age. It's about what happens when love isn't nurtured, when appreciation is forgotten, when effort disappears. It's about the cost of being unseen for too long. But it's also a chance to reflect, to reconnect, to repair if it's still possible. And even if it isn't, it's a chance to validate the feelings that were never named. To say, yes, this happened, and it mattered. You are allowed to feel tired. You are allowed to feel disappointed. And you are still allowed to want joy, connection, and recognition even now. Especially now. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. Reading your comments gives us great motivation and encouragement. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.